League One Round 4 kicks off this weekend with Richard Keogh at the helm of Blackpool still. It's going to be really interesting to see how they get on. I think they started really well in their game versus Cambridge United. There's obviously many other fixtures to keep an eye out on, like Bolton Wanderers, who are still struggling to start this season. But it's going to be interesting to see how it goes for them. But before we do get into looking at the fixtures, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL Championship and League One content heading your way across the course of this season. Obviously, check the description for the timestamps of your club so you can preview that fixture and then go through whichever ones you want as and when you please. Obviously, you can go and come back. Don't worry about that. So, shall we get into it? So starting off, we have the Blackpool game versus Wycombe Wanderers. Now, I believe as it stands, Richard Keogh is still in charge of Blackpool, and I think this is going to be a really, really interesting one. It's one that I might peek a notice at on Sky Sports. Obviously, Richard Keogh being a former Derby County captain, I'm really intrigued to see how he gets on. Obviously picked up their first point of the season at the weekend. The 4-0 win to Burton Albion, I believe, was in the cup competitions, and it's really interesting to see how they're going to get on this year, Blackpool, because they lost a lot of quality over the course of the summer, especially someone of the quality of Karamoko Dembele, who I think is an absolutely magnificent player and could probably do it at Premier League level. Obviously, he's gone to QPR now, so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Obviously, Wycombe Wanderers as well have made a fairly decent start to the season. Maybe not one which you'd anticipate, but they've done really, really well in their 2-0 win over Northampton Town and their 2-0 win over Rotherham as well. So it's really interesting to look at. Obviously, Blackpool losing to Stockport and Crawley. Obviously, that 4-4 draw after being 4-1 up to Cambridge is not sort of what they wanted. There's a lot to discuss with these two teams, though. Obviously, Wycombe Wanderers under new owners, Blackpool under new management structure at the moment in Richard Keogh. So it's going to be interesting to see how it progresses for both of these sides. I think they've still got a long way to go. Transfer window is still open. So if Richard Keogh is going to be the man at the helm for Blackpool heading into the next few games, he may be able to make a fair few signings. Maybe get on the blower to Derby County to give Dejon Brown an opportunity. But it is certainly going to be an interesting fixture and one for you to look out for. But if you're a Blackpool fan or a Wycombe fan, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Rotherham United host Huddersfield Town at the New York Stadium in what I think is going to be a really, really interesting one. Rotherham United haven't got off to their best start this season, and it's certainly something which they'll want to turn around as quickly as possible. Now, where does Rotherham's season actually start? Now, they've obviously picked up a few defeats along the way. Their only wins coming in cup competitions. It's going to be really interesting to see how Steve Evans does progress this Rotherham United side, because you look at the start that Huddersfield Town have made, 4 wins from 4, conceding just 1 goal across that as well. And it's just very, very different. And I do feel for Steve Evans at Rotherham. He's gone in there with the expectation of getting promoted. They've signed an abundance of new players as well and just haven't quite hit the level so far that he expected. And he's going into his old ways a little bit with ignoring coaches after matches, not shaking hands and things like that. How long will it be before he gets the fist pump out for those Rotherham United fans? I can't quite see it happening versus Huddersfield Town with the start they've had. Excellent side, and there's a couple of players in this Huddersfield Town side that I'd love to have at Derby County in the Championship. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they get on. Obviously, both of these two sides will be hoping to be in that promotion picture come the end of the season, but as it stands right now, the only one that looks like they're going to be in that is Huddersfield Town. Rotherham United certainly have not started the season to the expectation that they'll have wanted. Birmingham City have finally found some form, winning their last 3 games in a row, whereas Wigan Athletic have only just got off the mark with their first win of the season. Now, it's very interesting reading, looking at these two sides. Obviously, Birmingham City and Wigan are on completely different financial scales. Obviously, Wigan have just lost Charlie Hughes, who was a massive player for them over the course of last campaign. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams do sort of progress as the season goes on. I really thought Wigan would be able to push on this year, but it doesn't seem as if that is going to be the case. Now, Birmingham City started with that 1-1 draw versus Reading. They've gone on to win then following 3 games. 2-1 to Leyton Orient at the weekend, 3-2 before that, and a 1-0 win against Charlton. Now, there has been some cup competitions in League One. Obviously, you've got the EFL Trophy and the Carabao Cup to contend with for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams manage squad-wise and things like that. Now, Birmingham City certainly have the capabilities to be one of the best teams in this division. They're certainly showing that already. Now, they're only going to get better and better as the season progresses, and I believe there is still talks of transfers at Birmingham City. I've heard the name Lyndon Dykes linked with a move to Birmingham City over the past few days, so it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. Wigan Athletic, there doesn't really seem to be much movement. Obviously, we'll see how it goes at the end of deadline day. We'll make sure to make a video on each team's transfers come the end of the summer. So make sure you've hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay tuned for that. Birmingham fans, Wigan fans, let me know your thoughts heading into this game down in the comments. Bolton Wanderers are struggling to get off the mark in League One this year. Yes, they've picked up a couple of points already, but a disappointing defeat versus Charlton in a game where Bolton were the better side for the large parts and had more of the ball, but were unable to create anything really that cemented a proper goal scoring opportunity. I felt like Bolton Wanderers again this season have started off in that same ilk as they ended last season, unable to put away their chances. And despite the fact they've got Dion Charles, Aaron Collins, McAtee, is it Aaron or Archie Collins? Let me know down in the comments. I always get those two mixed up with Peterborough and Bolton. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this Bolton side turn it around. Now, Exeter got off to an excellent start with that 1-0 win versus Rotherham. Obviously, their previous 2 results haven't been great, let's say. But they're probably going to expect to be sort of mid-table this year. So I think they'll take 3 points out of 3 league games. So it's going to be a very interesting one. Bolton Wanderers will certainly want to be much higher up the division. They'll be wanting to be part of that group that are pushing the pace with Huddersfield, Birmingham, things like that. So I think Stockport County are up there as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it progresses over the course of the next few games. But they certainly haven't hit their stride yet. So there's certainly going to be a lot that still needs to be looked at over the course of this season. Now, Exeter City obviously travelled to the Tough Shit Community Stadium. It's going to be really interesting to see how that one goes. Obviously, Ian Evatt could find himself under some mega pressure if he doesn't find form quickly. So obviously, let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll catch you in the next game. Bristol Rovers host Cambridge United at the Memorial Stadium. And I think if we do look at the early results for Bristol Rovers, apart from that 1-0 win over Northampton Town, they've not really got going yet. Obviously, the 0-0 draw versus Rotherham was a really, really good point, and obviously, so that puts them on 4 points in 3 games, which I think they'll be delighted with. Obviously, the 3-3 draw to Spurs' Academy in the EFL Trophy is certainly a game which they probably won't want to relive, and obviously the 2-0 defeat to Cardiff. Now, obviously, Cambridge picked up an excellent result versus Blackpool, and you look at it and you go 4-4, it can't be that good, but they were 4-0 down just after half time. So it's really interesting to see that they're able to turn that around. Obviously, they've also lost to Crawley, they've lost to QPR and Stockport so far this season. So it's going to be interesting to see how both of these sides progress over the course of the year. Cambridge United have got sort of sitting in that sort of relegation zone for this campaign and in and around it anyway, and Bristol Rovers won't be far ahead. So I really thought Bristol Rovers would push on this year, but it doesn't seem like they've hit that yet. But we'll just have to see how the season goes. We obviously know last season, after about 12 or 15 games, Derby County was sitting 12th, 13th in and around that area, and ended up going up in second place. So I'm not saying these two sides are going to do that, but it is capable, it is possible. So let's see what happens as these two sides progress. Obviously, if you're a Bristol Rovers fan or a Cambridge fan, let me know your thoughts down below. And we'll just have to see what happens with these two sides. Hopefully they can push on and find that next level. Crawley Town, in my opinion, have had a really good start to life in League One. Obviously, many people have predicted them to go down at the bottom, myself included, but they've started the season really, really well. They've picked up a couple of wins to start off this campaign against some really good sides in Cambridge and Blackpool. Now, I'm not saying Cambridge are a really, really good side in the division, but compared to where people expected Crawley to be, Cambridge are a decent side. Blackpool as well, that was a good win. They've obviously had a couple of cup competitions as well, and most recently lost to Wigan Athletic away from home. It's going to be really important for Crawley if they want to stay in the division to make sure that when they're at home they're picking up their points. I think for many of these divisions it's like 45 to 50 points to stay up, so it'll be really interesting to see how that one goes. Obviously Barnsley haven't quite found a rhythm yet. They've picked up a couple of points, obviously the 2-1 win over Lincoln. They lost to Manchester United Academy in the EFL Trophy, which is always an interesting one. But I do think that Barnsley could sort of develop this season as it goes. Obviously, they've got Conor Horahan there, who's a really good leader and he's really good at things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop over the course of this campaign. I think they certainly have the capabilities to improve. It's just about whether they're able to get the players in before deadline day, which I think is on the 30th. So it's about 2 days after you're watching this. So if there's any transfer news or speculation, make sure you do let me know down in the comments. I think Barnsley certainly need it more than most in this League One division. I think Reading are another one who certainly need to start picking up some players. I still don't think they've signed anyone this summer due to the ongoing takeover from Rob Couhig. Has it happened yet? Let me know down in the comments. Obviously, there was a period where I thought it was done because Couhig had been at the games, he's been at the training ground, he's posted loads of pictures and stuff like that. So I just thought it may have been done. Obviously, we're talking about Reading now. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But Crawley Town and Barnsley, it's going to be an interesting one. I think Crawley Town could snatch a result here because Barnsley haven't quite recovered from their slump towards the back end of last season. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that develops. Obviously, it's happened with teams before where they've struggled at the back end and then not been able to pick up again. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. They've lost some big players. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next for both of these two sides. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL Championship and League One matchday previews and reviews heading your way across the course of this season. If you haven't done so already, make sure you check out the League One review from the previous week. Probably came out around Tuesday, so make sure you've checked that out so you know what happened at the weekend if you weren't able to catch up on all the results. But we'll now get back into the preview of Game Week 4. Next up, we have Mansfield Town versus Stockport County, and what I think is going to be a really, really interesting game. Obviously, Mansfield have had a fairly decent start to life in League One. The cup competitions, they can't quite say the same. A 2-1 win over Barnsley, a 3-3 draw with Burton Albion. I think they'll be delighted with that start so far. Obviously, you've got the 1-1 draw to Bolton in there as well. Obviously, they have lost the previous two games, 2-0 to Rotherham. I believe that was in a cup competition, and 4-1 to Lincoln City, which is a very, very disappointing result, that one to Lincoln City. But Lincoln City were clinical in that game, and Nigel Clough will certainly want to be defending better heading into future fixtures. Now, I think Mansfield Town will stay up this season. I think they'll be competitive in the division, and Stockport County have massively surprised me this season. 3 wins from 3 so far, and they've not conceded a league goal yet. So Mansfield are going to have a big job on their hands if they're going to take points from Stockport at home this weekend. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. I think I've said it a few times in previous videos, and I've had a lot of stick for my predictions for Stockport, but ultimately teams can surprise people, and opinions are opinions, and I think Stockport County have done excellently so far. It's just about, are they going to be able to keep it going for a 46 game season? Now, obviously they're not going to win every single game this year. I think that's pretty much impossible to do, but they're certainly going to have moments where they slump, and it's about, how are they going to be able to turn that around? How long is it going to go on for? How many matches are they going to go without a win? How many matches are they going to go without a point? And things like that. So obviously I'm hoping for Stockport County. I hope they have a successful season. Whether my prediction is right or wrong at the end of the season really means nothing. So it's one of those for me where they've started excellently. It's all about how long they can continue it for and how much of a good position they can put themselves in. But obviously so far, Louis Barry started the season excellently. Is it Kyle Wotton as well? Another player who they've brought in has done really, really well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one progresses. I think both Mansfield and Stockport are probably picking from the same pool of players, budgetary-wise, but it's going to be interesting to see how deadline day goes for them. If they do bring in any more players, I think there's opportunities out there for players to come in. It's just about making sure you bring in the right ones that are going to make the squad better. Next up, you've got Northampton versus Burton Albion. Now, Northampton coming to the back of this one, off the back of a really good 2-2 draw with Barnsley, and Burton Albion coming off the back of a ball draw versus Stevenage. Now, Burton Albion need to find a win. They need to find a win. They've struggled with that this season. Their only win coming against Leicester City's Academy, 3-1 in the EFL Trophy. Northampton as well, their only win this season is in League One versus Exeter. 2-1 win for that one, and obviously lost to Wycombe Wanderers, Bristol Rovers, and obviously the draw to Barnsley. But it's going to be very interesting with both of these sides. Obviously, for Burton Albion, I always think you need to take out that 4-0 defeat to Blackpool because they had 10 men for the best part of 80 minutes. So it's a very interesting one. Obviously, they lost to Lincoln City. They've drew with Mansfield Town, which was a late goal. And obviously, they've had the ball draw with Stevenage. It's going to be important to see how the Burton Albion manager can turn this around, because they've brought in a lot of players this summer, which pretty similar to Birmingham City in a sense, where I think you're not really going to see the Burton Albion until sort of September, October time. And I think Northampton Town just need to slowly go about their business and sort of stabilise themselves in mid-table. I think they'll be okay this year, Northampton. I think Burton Albion towards the back end will probably really be pushing on. They've got some young players and experience in that squad now who I think can make a real difference. You look at the quality that they've brought in with Dylan Williams, who I think is going to be an excellent player in a few years' time. Obviously spent time at Chelsea, came through the Derby County Academy. So it's going to be interesting to see how that obviously develops over the course of the next few weeks and months, because obviously there's a long way to go in this season. 44 games to go, well, 43 games to go, sorry, as we head into this one. And Burton Albion will hope to come away from Sixfields with 3 points. Peterborough United host Wrexham at the Western Home Stadium, and it looks like they may have found their formula this season, Peterborough, but Wrexham too, how coming into this one off the back of a really good result. Peterborough coming in off the back of 2 wins in a row, 4-1 versus Shrewsbury and 2-1 versus Exeter, whereas Wrexham come in off the back of picking up 4 points versus Bolton and Reading, a 3-0 win versus Reading in that, and a really good draw with Bolton Wanderers in that one. Now, obviously, if we look at the rest of the start of the campaign, obviously, Wrexham winning 3-2 versus Wycombe. It puts them on 7 points so far in this campaign. Huddersfield are on 6. Peterborough, are on 6. There's a long way for this season to go. I think Wrexham could find themselves in that promotion battle if they can find a way to continue winning. Obviously, they've picked up some good results recently. Obviously, the draw against Bolton was a really good one in my opinion. And when it comes towards the back end of the season, I think that point is going to be massive. Not just for Bolton, but also for Wrexham, when you look at where they're going to finish in the table. Obviously, you look at last year, and I think Bolton were, 5 points off Derby in the end, and they dropped some massive games over the course of this season. So it's going to be interesting to see what does happen with these two sides. I think Darren Ferguson has begun to find a formula that works with his young and improving squad, and I think that shows in the 6 goals scored in the last 2 games after not being able to hit a barn door to start the season. So there's obviously a long way to go in this one. Peterborough may still bring in players across the course of the end of the transfer window. I think it ends 2 days after you're watching this video. So obviously, if there's been any transfers or anything, make sure you let me know down in the comments. I think Peterborough and Wrexham could both do with a couple more, just to give them a little bit extra. But I think both teams are going to be sound in League One this year. I think Peterborough and Wrexham may both be pushing for promotion. It's going to be interesting to see how it ends though this year. And we will have a review out of this game next week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. Reading host Charlton at the Select Car Leasing Stadium is what is going to be a very interesting game. Charlton have had a really good start to life in League One under Nathan Jones in his first full season. 1-0 win to Wigan, losing 1-0 to Birmingham City, which I believe was the cup game, and then a 1-0 win over Leyton Orient and 2-0 over Bolton Wanderers. It's really, really good to see a team not concede many goals, pick up really good results. But I think with Charlton, they're in that sort of Nathan Jones mindset now, where it's defend first, score second, because if you can't concede, you can't lose. And that's something which I think is massively important. Obviously, I do think you need to be able to put up a fight, and I think they've shown in all of their games that is what they are capable of doing. You obviously look at Reading, and they started the season with a 1-1 draw over Birmingham City. Obviously, the 2-2 draw to Colchester in the Cup competitions. 2-0 Wigan win, and then a 3-1 win over West Ham's Academy, and then a 3-0 loss to Wrexham. And we spoke about Reading previously. I think they're the only team in the division that hasn't yet made a transfer. We obviously have to talk about their ownership situation, which hasn't been great over recent years, which is one of the reasons why they are in this division. And you look at Reading, who have been really good in Championship and have played in the Premier League, and they've had some really good spells in times, but their current owner just doesn't seem to want to give up. Now, I do believe that Rob Couhig is on the way to take over there. There's been loads of pictures speculating over social media with him, from himself and others as well, of him being at Reading games. Now, they're yet to make a transfer, and I really hope that by the end of by the time you're seeing this video, or by the time the transfer window shuts, I do hope they're able to bring in some players, because I do think they've got a fairly decent squad to sort of go with anyway. I just think they need a couple more additions, which will make them really, really competitive in the division. You obviously look at what Charlton have done over this season with some of the players they've brought in that Nathan Jones has been able to get his hands on. And I think Ruben Sellers has that sort of capability as well. But it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes. Obviously, they'll be disappointed with the 3-0 defeat to Wrexham. They'll be hoping to turn that around in this game. If you're a Reading fan, Charlton fan, let me know your thoughts down below. I always try and keep like an unbiased mindset for all the teams in this division, but I sort of do feel a bit bad for Reading and both Wigan with the situations they've been through in recent years. Obviously, with Derby County going through something similar, it sort of opens up a few wounds for me. So I really hope it gets sorted at Reading and at Wigan, so that you're able to really sort of progress on and push back into the Championship. But let me know down in the comments whether you think you're going to be able to take 3 points in this game, whether you're a Reading fan, Charlton fan. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. Shrewsbury Town face Leyton Orient at the Crowd Meadow Stadium, and Shrewsbury have not got off to a great start this year, have they? And you just look at those results, there's an abundance of red, and the same for Leyton Orient. It's not quite gone to plan so far. Now, Leyton Orient will build and develop. I think they've faced some really, really tough games to start this year in Bolton, Charlton and Birmingham. I think it's really, really disappointing for them that they've had that start to the season, because they could have faced anybody, and you get 3 of the teams that are going to be up there for promotion come the end of the season. You look at the Shrewsbury Town start as well. They face Stevenage, Peterborough and Huddersfield. 3 again. Difficult games, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they turn it around. Obviously, Richie Wellens has been his name's been put forward for the Blackpool job. He doesn't seem as if he wants it. But we'll have to see what happens with that one. Obviously, Shrewsbury Town will certainly be hoping that they can turn around their form. They've not really scored. Well, they scored against Notts County, but they've only scored 1 in league competitions so far this season, and they'll be hoping that they can turn it around. Obviously, they have faced 3 of the toughest sides in the division, but we'll have to see what happens over the course of the campaign. Shrewsbury fans, Leyton Orient fans, let me know your thoughts down below. And to end League One Round 4 at the Lamex Stadium, Stevenage host Lincoln City, and what could be a really, really interesting game. Stevenage come in off the back of a ball draw with Burton Albion. Lincoln City coming off the back of a 4-1 thrashing of Mansfield Town. And obviously, if you look at Lincoln City to start the season, apart from the Burton Albion result, they've not really been great. Losing to Harrogate and losing to Barnsley are 2 results which they wish they didn't have. But obviously, the 2 wins are mega. 6 points on the board. You obviously look at Stevenage. They started with that 1-0 win to Shrewsbury. Had a really good performance against Norwich, but losing to Huddersfield would have been disappointing, especially because if you listen to their fans, it felt like they were in that game. Now, I've had a few Huddersfield fans say that it was more because Huddersfield sat off because they were winning, and I can see both sides of the coin with that one. But Burton Albion 0-0 draw sort of won't have been the result Stevenage want. Alex Revel and Skubala at Stevenage and Lincoln respectively. We'll be hoping that they can turn their form around, and obviously Lincoln City look like they've done that with that 4-1 win over Mansfield, but can they carry it into this one? Stevenage obviously need to get a couple of wins on the board, and a 0-0 draw to Burton I think is going to look like a good result come the end of the season, where both teams are going to finish, but it'll be really interesting to see how it does end come May. Now, we've gone through all of the games in League One, so if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. Obviously, if you haven't checked the League One review from the weekend, make sure you do go and do that. It's probably come out on Tuesday or Wednesday, so make sure you've seen that. I think you'll be seeing this on Wednesday evening, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, let me know any information regarding transfers down in the comments, and I'll catch you in my next video. Be sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.